All right. Good evening, good morning, wherever you happen to be. This is Ryan with the Smart House, and welcome to our first ever live stream. So this is going to be sort of our home automation Q&A. If not, I've got some projects we're going to discuss a little bit more on this week's video. The one that came out about uh, room presence. I've had a lot of people ask questions about how to do room presence using things like some of the enhanced room presence using the inside tracking software that we talked about this week. So um, I definitely will be talking about that here if we don't get any questions or comments. So I'll give everybody a little bit of time to join in. I see there's a couple people on the stream already. So if you'd like to say hi, if not, that's okay. You'll notice I've got the, no, this way, sorry. That's mirrored. The 3D printer going in the corner just so there's something to look at other than my face. We're printing out a mini 3D mini Minecraft jack-o'-lantern keychain. So for my son for Halloween. So it's Halloween season. Give me just a minute. I'm going to pull up some information about what one of the people had asked about the room positioning stuff. And so just give me a minute. I'll look it up. All right. Hurry up. I'm on. My son's trying to get his Kindle off the charger in my room. As you can see there on the camera. I guess that's funny. All right. Let's see. I was grabbing some of the questions people had on. Somebody was asking about. I can't remember the name of the. Oh, here it is. Presence detection more than binary from Hacks. So let's take a look at that. Let me switch over to the. Oh, hello. Hey, Aubrey. Oh, what? That's. I'm. Hopefully that was helpful. Did you get your Wise integration set up, or are you still struggling with it? Actually, let me pop it up on screen so people can see it. Aha, there it is. I feel so fancy. I figured out how to do that. Okay, let's see if that does anything. Okay, can you hear me now? Better, hopefully. I've been using a Scarlett 2i2, like trying to get more fancy, and for some reason it drops out after I don't know 10 minutes of using it. When I'm using it with Streamlabs, it just drops out randomly. So sorry about that. Thank you for letting me know. So while I was saying on the Wise integration, yes, Hakeem, excellent. Yeah, that's the one I'm going to look up. Okay, personal location reverse geocode. I'll look at that one up here in a second. That's what I was going to go to. But on the Wise integration, if you've updated the latest version of the Wise integration, you may have noticed that some of the features are missing. But that's because we were actually severely impacting. Thank you, Al. We were severely impacting Wise's servers. I think the statistics were um, Home Assistant users were like 5% or 1%, something like that. And we were using over 50% of their server utilization. So they asked kindly of the developer for him to rate limit some of the requests and also get rid of things like some of the basically was pinging every time somebody wanted to see a light status. So they're working on a better way of doing that, but you may notice if you've upgraded the latest version, you've lost some functions. And that's normal because that's just keeping us in good standings with the Wise folks. So the Wise folks are really fun. They're a really good team. I've been working with them on some different things. They sent me something to check out here in the next few weeks. So it's kind of good that they're looking to work with us on that instead of just shutting us off. So anyway, on the Wise integration, I just want to give you guys an update on that. That was something that I think a lot of people are going to want to deal with. Um, so this was the integration I was talking about, person location reverse geocode. Let's take a look. Let me switch over to my screen here. Ooh, we're so fancy. All right, so this is the person location reverse geocode hacks. Is that a hacks integration or is that something another project? I guess let me go look that up in hacks real quick. Let's go to my test environment here. Yeah, I have been um, preparing for this live stream for like 3 weeks now, trying to get all the settings, everything done correctly. And I saw them do this on the Home Assistant one on the announcement for the Amber. I'm like, how did they do that? And so I had to figure out how to do the little pop-ups to the questions. So, can you give me a link on that one? Half Hathacum, maybe. Hopefully, I'm pronouncing that correctly. Can you send me a link on that one? Um, I'm trying to find it. I'll keep looking. It may be a so I'm not finding that one anywhere. Let me check your comments, make sure I'm not missing it. Oh, there we go. That looks like it's it. Oh, that's by Phil. Oh, is this using? I remember reading this one back a couple years ago. Yeah, I think I based some of my automations on this one. Yeah. I think this is a little out of date because if you look at the date, there's been a lot of changes. One of them being the new person integration. Not new, but a relatively new person integration that came out a while back. And so, what specific question do you have on this one? What'd you get stuck at? Let me check, make sure I'm not missing the any questions. Um, I did put a survey out on my website. I don't know if anybody went out there and looked. Um, I'm loading that up right now. Bear with me. Sorry, I've got a little monitor down here that I'm trying to figure out where that is. No, okay. So nobody asked any questions on that. I just want to make sure I didn't miss any on that one. Um, would it help if I kind of showed you how I do my um, presence at home? Mine's real basic. I haven't gotten into anything like there's what is it called? Hold on, let me find it real quick. There's a methodology for adding weights to your different sensors. Okay, excellent. So Aubrey, that's so I will go through my how I do mine. Again, I've done a few different methods of mine, and I do have my live environment pulled up over here. So I'll go through that here in a second. But for if you want to get really advanced, it'd be helpful to let me know where you guys get stuck at with presence. I'll show you some of mine, and if you have a question on that, let me do that. Okay, why not? Why use it? Okay, let me bring that question up here real quick, since that's a good long response there. There we go. All right. It in general looks like why use it when a person with a device attached is already reverse geocoded. That's a bunch of features that I don't understand. Okay. Yeah. Again, I think his article. Uh, okay, Mark. I'll address yours here in a little bit too. So feel free to ask questions. I will go back through the chat and answer them as we go through. So on the presence one, now there's been his article is like 2007 2017 2018. That's before home assistant really got into the person entities. And I'll show you, actually, let me flip over here to the live screen here, and we'll go through fast. So if you look here on my dashboard, I track a lot of people, I guess, in comparison to some people. I have myself, my wife, my mother-in-law, and my father, all who come and help babysit my kids during the day. And at the bottom, you see my three sons. Um, so right now, because I've made a change, it's a little broken. But how I was doing this in the past, I'll actually go over here to the phone tab. You'll notice that I've got numerous entities that worked together to determine whether I'm home or away. Now, I'm using just the straight basic um, person integration. So if you go down here to configuration, go to people, people, not persons, sorry. Uh, a person, you can track numerous, it has to be a device tracker, can't be a sensor, has to be a device tracker that shows both home or not home. Now, it can take any combination of these and use them to determine when somebody leaves the house. Now, it's a little buggy because I have noticed sometimes, so for example, a GPS location, if your GPS location's home and then you have another sensor that says not home, it'll make you go not home. And then when the GPS updates, then we can go home again. So it's not perfect and Bayesian. That's what it's called. There's a function called a Bayesian sensor, which gets very complicated. So I'm not going to go into it right this second. But the Bayesian sensor uses math, which I know a lot of people hate, but it uses different weighted variables to determine what is more important. And that's probably going to be a video that I do in the future. I have to do a lot of research on that one and actually get it around my head properly. But basically, you're able to assign a weight to each of these sensors, both for leaving and returning. So something, say like a Bluetooth tracker, you don't want that one to have a heavy weight on leaving, for example. You want it to have a lower weight. So if it leaves and a device with a higher weight is still home, it will still make you home. However, you can set also home weight as well. So you can give it a higher home weight. So if your GPS sensors show you were as away, and that device comes online and it says you're home, then more than likely you're home. And so you're able to set those sort of mathematical probabilities to say this is higher, this is lower, and it's a much more advanced way of doing things. So if you do run into problems with devices kicking you out of the house when you're actually still home, that's a good thing to look into, and that's a future topic I will go into. But you have to use device trackers for the people function. So it's kind of a nice little all wrapped together built-in function. I used to use groups before the person integration came about. I think that's what Phil Hawthorne is talking about there. Which, by the way, if you don't know, Phil Hawthorne is the one of the hosts on the Home Assistant podcast. So if you're interested in this kind of stuff with Home Assistant, they do a monthly release podcast where they talk about each of the podcasts I'm sorry, each of the Home Assistant releases, and they have a guest usually on to talk about something Home Assistant related. So that's I thought it was kind of funny. That's Phil Hawthorne. So how my house works, for me, this is for my personal one. I've got the Bluetooth device tracker, which is my ESP. Well, actually, I have one right here. Is my ESP32 devices, and how those change all together. And I'll show you guys if you're interested. It's on my blog post for this last video, but I'll show you in here how that automation works to create a virtual device tracker that works with these. So you can get that data into here. Then I use a Google Maps. That's the primary one. And if you haven't seen the Google Maps one, it's pretty cool. You create a dummy account. So I have a house account, and then I share my location in the Google Maps app. I share my location in the app itself with that user, and then that translates into Home Assistant. So then Home Assistant gets my actual geolocation. It gets phone data as well from there, like battery levels and things like that. And then I also have the built-in one with Home Assistant. So if you use the Home Assistant app, it does the device locating and whatnot. So that's in there as well. So hopefully that answers the question on any more questions on presence or device tracking, and then I'll jump back for Mark's question on the ESP Sense. ESP Presence, I'm sorry, I keep calling it ESP Sense for some reason. If I can turn off slow mode. Okay, oops, sorry. I clicked on your comment instead of clearing the other one. Okay, so hopefully that sheds a little bit more light on, I guess the last critical step is I have a group. I have a group that contains all of my person sensors, and if that group is home, if one member of that group is home, that group goes to home. If all the members are not home, then it goes to not home. So, yeah, I don't think it really is a good. There's no good visualization in groups, and I think it's going away at some point in time. Yeah, yeah, exactly. It's not really necessary. I'm assuming he worked with the develop. Oh, sorry. I'll bring it back out. Yeah, I think it's all changed. Really, it was a very hacky back in the day when you had to set up everything was done through groups, and so it was really messy when you're doing home presence and things like that. So, and even today, it's not perfect by any stretch. I'm hoping they add some logic into there in the future to allow presence detection to be a little smarter. Those Bayesian weights I was talking about, but automatically done, so you don't have to do that. You don't have to actually add that information in there for you. So, if you have more questions about that, I can certainly hop back. I have a couple things I want to show, but nothing super important. I will answer Mark's question, and then I will come back to the code on my blog post about the virtual device tracker, because it's not. It's very relevant for these sort of things. If you wanted to do the virtual device trackers, it's nice to have that feature. So Mark, I don't know if you're still connected, and if not, I'm sure you can go back and watch this, but I'll still go ahead and answer the question. I don't think the number of sensors impacts the speed of the of ESC presence. I believe there are some devices that are faster than others. I did note that exact same thing as well. It may be a timing issue with the Home Assistant app. It may go through and do like only periodically broadcast those Bluetooth tokens. So I noticed it too. I was testing it actually in my garage. I walked my son to school this morning, and then I walked home, and the house had gone into away mode because my wife already left with the twins. And so I actually stood at the garage door, where I have one in my garage on the ceiling, and waited there outside the garage to see how long it took me. And actually, the Home Assistant sensor popped up first. The Home Assistant built in one in the app actually saw me first because I had the app open. Then after I'd say 30 seconds, the ESP home presence one actually popped up and said, "Hey, you're home." So it seems to be pretty fast moving between rooms as well. So there is that timeout feature on there too. And feel free to comment on the video. If you didn't notice, there's a person there called Daryl. That's the developer for the project. So he's actually very active on the comment section and answering people's questions. So I will pass this question on to him and see if he has any answers on that. So hopefully that'll be helpful. All right, so if there isn't any other questions right now, I'm going to go ahead and show you the code snippet from the blog post and how I implement that to use the ESP presence room. So if you got bedroom, kitchen, whatever, and you translating that into a device tracker, because device trackers are binary, either home or not home. And so if you put that sensor would work with the people. So hold on one second. Let me. Sorry, to crack open my drink here. All right. So I'll bring up my Visual Studio Code here. Actually, I'll just bring up the actual automation. All right. So how this works is there are two automations that you flip back and forth. Actually, I'll clear that real quick. So there are two automations that you flip back and that flip back and forth. You have two automations per. Sorry, let me get rid of my picture here so you can see. Actually, I guess we'll go in there. Two automations, one for home, one for away, and then it uses a function on a device tracker that says, "Hey, no or not home or home." So it uses that sensor. So this is the sensor from your ESP presence. And when it goes from any state to not home is when this triggers. So when it goes from bedroom to not home or whatever to not home, that's what triggers this particular thing. And if you scroll down here, there's a call service called device_tracker.c. This is not a very well known. It's not a very well known service that you can call, but this actually will create a virtual device tracker. So you don't need to define anything in your YAML code. You just say device_tracker.c. Give it a device ID. This can be any name you want that's valid. And you give it a location name of not home. And that's going to update that device tracker. So all right. So if I go over here to, so it already has me as away. So I go to the home and sensor. So when for the home automation, the one that goes for home, if it goes from not home to any other state, that's how this triggers here. Then it's going to run device tracker.c, change location to home. So if I go up here and I run action, oh, I have that. That's right. I have that wrong. It's Ryan's. Yeah, that's why it's not working. See, I make mistakes too. So you'll see that it's in away now when this runs, and it may take it a minute since it's still reloading. Yeah, it's still reloading. Yeah, there it goes. Now it's home. So you can use this. So this is how you would translate your ESP presence sensor into a device tracker for the person integration or the people integration. So that now you can add this to a person, and then when your tracker is no longer in the house, then it will show that device tracker as away. But one thing to be aware of here, though, is obviously if you have dead spots, if you have dead zones in your house, then your phone would have a tendency to show as away. So be cognizant of that. Maybe add another layer of automation that says, hey, if a door opens, then let me go to away mode. Or you can cover your house with more sensors and you get 100% coverage. So I had some problems before, but I added a new sensor in the basement, and I think that covers the whole area of the house. So I think let's see. There was some other. I think somebody was asking about automations using ESP presence. Now The developer, he specifically mentioned in, I think, he mentioned in a comment that it's recommended to use another sensor. Like we talked about with the home and away, it's better to use a fast response sensor like a motion tracker or a door opening sensor to trigger on an automation, but then to trigger off an automation using the ESP presence. So, for example, in my office here, obviously I've got a lot of things in here. I've got lights, I've got a TV, Xbox, Xbox Series X. There's a lot of things in here that are controllable, and like these monitors, for example, I can turn them off. So if I'm rendering a video, I have a power switch that'll kill them. So I usually walk into the room and I hit a button. I've got a IKEA Tragify button that I've got linked to Zigbee Zigbee to MQTT, and so when I can hit this button, it'll turn these monitors on. I also have another one right here that control the lights in the room. Um, so I do it manually when I walk into the room, but it'd be nicer to have it automated. And to do that would be I have a oh see I hit the button and now the lights turn on. I have a motion sensor over the door, so I'd walk into the room. The motion sensor would trigger the automation, turn everything on, and that automation would stay on even if the motion sensor no longer detects me. So if I'm sitting real still here, that sensor's not going to see me. That's where the ESP presence comes into play. If you leave the office and there's no motion detected, then turn everything off. So that's kind of how I would do an automation when it comes to ESP presence. I haven't implemented that yet because I just got the project set up, but that's what I'm going to modify for things like our bedroom, for example. Um, what I think I'd mentioned it before. When my wife and I put our phones on the wireless chargers, then after a certain time, it knows that we're in bed and it shuts off all the lights in the house, sets the alarm, checks the doors, blah blah blah. Well, the problem is if she's in bed and I'm in here, and I put my phone on the wireless charger in here, it puts the house to sleep mode, and that's not what I want. So in that particular instance, I'm going to change it to where I will do the if we're both in the bedroom, then trigger that automation. So I think there was a question. Yeah. So in that case, you definitely, that's where you would separate um, gross and fine locations. That's why I tell my status. That's why I have that device tracker for ESP presence that says it doesn't matter what room I'm in, as long as I'm in the room, I'm home. But in the case that you hit a dead zone, that's where you'd run into problems if you're using the built-in person integrations, because that's where if your phone drops off but your GPS still says you're there. If you use the built-in person detection, it's going to say you're away until your GPS updates, and then it'll overwrite. So it's the last sensor. It's you're kind of first in, first out. So the last sensor, when it trips, then that's what determines. And that's a bit of a pain. So that's why using something like the Bayesian would be better, or a more complicated like automation that says, if GPS is home, it's the master, but if this other device is home and GPS is away, then that sort of thing. So that's where you probably get more complicated automations. That's where I'd like to see them implement some built-in smarts, so we don't have to code that all ourselves. But yeah, the that's a good point. You make your zone much bigger than your house. Obviously, if you spend a lot of time at the neighbor's house and that causes problems, that's going to be an issue. But for most of us, my zone covers maybe the one tiny corner of my neighbor's house. So if I'm sitting outside, it still thinks I'm home. But if I walk down the street to the school, then it doesn't show I'm home. So, and today it's not a beer. It's a seltzer from our local, not local, but the Kansas City Brewery Boulevard, which is pretty good. One of the best seltzers I've had. So if you're in the U.S., you can get your hands on them. They're pretty tasty. Okay. Um, so let's look at the other automations. One of the questions I do get a lot of is how do you do motion track or motion sensor based lights. Now, I'd say one of my favorite automations that I have right now is my master bathroom. We have an enclosed toilet room, so it's just a separate room where you toilet. And when you walk in there, lights turn on automatically. Now I'm using a blueprint, which I'll bring up here on screen in a second. That is actually the blueprint that lets you set different light levels at different times of the day, which is great because at 1 a.m. that light comes up on at 2%, just enough to see, but not enough to blind you. So that's one of those great, you know, dumb, low-level automations that I really like, and that's super makes you feel like it makes you kind of feel like you're living in the Jetsons because you just walk in, lights turn on, and they turn off after a couple minutes, and everything's fine. So if you are interested in that, I will find the blueprint here. Let me bring that back up. So if you haven't played with blueprints already, they're very cool. At first, I kind of dismissed them as, why would I care about? I can write my own automations, but they are really nice because people have made them complicated or more complex, and you don't have to do anything extra with it. So the one I'm using here is the aptly titled Yet Another Motion automation, and I'll take you through what the process looks like. So you can find these by importing the blueprint. So if you go out to the community forums, there's a blueprints exchange, which they say they're going to improve this year. I haven't heard any talk about that. Thanks a lot for joining, Hathkim. Hopefully I pronounced your name correctly. Have a good night. I know these are probably late for some people and early for some other people. So thanks for joining and thanks for the great questions. So for the blueprints exchange, the you can go through here and search. There's a lot of them. I usually like to search by views. The most common one, and this is kind of a running joke in the community, is low-level battery detection. Like, how many years is Home Assistant? 8. We turned 8. Home Assistant turned 8, and it still doesn't automatically tell you when there's a battery sensor that's low. So I use this one, and I'll actually show you what it does. It sends me this big giant. I know it's probably hard to read on the screen here, but it sends me a Telegram message every day at 6 o'clock with all the low battery sensors. So anything that's below a certain threshold, it tells you what that is. It tells you what what it currently is. So if it's at 20% or 0% or whatever it is. So I have a lot of sensors that I need to go replace batteries in. So there's a lot of really cool ones in here. So I like to go through here periodically and just sort by the number of views, and then go through and pick something new to play with. Yet another motion automation. So this is it here, and you can import it by clicking this link or by copying the GitHub, the gist here, into Home Assistant, but it's easier just to click the My one. And if you haven't set this up already, this My Home Assistant is actually pretty cool. If you have the default configuration in your YAML file, all you have to do is click on this, and it's going to ask for your URL, your instance. So paste in your Nabu Casa or your DuckDNS URL, and then it allows you to import in blueprints and integrations just by a single click. So very cool, very quick way of getting in and doing that kind of stuff. So once you bring it in, then it's going to look like this. And so for this particular one, you select the motion sensor. So we'll do binary sensor.office. Oh, crap. Oh, I forgot the name of it. There it is. So you set the motion sensor. You can select, this could be, it's based off one, so you could copy this over and over again if you had different rooms. The light, so I'll pick office lamp, spare bedroom 1, spare bedroom 2. Then you select how long once the last motion event is detected before the lights turn off. Now in this instance, you'd want to set this. This is all depending on what sensor you use. Some sensors, almost immediately after motion is stopped, they go back to off. Some sensors stay on for as long as 5 minutes. So you have to play with this threshold for your particular one. You can set up automation blockers, which are things that you could say if this input boolean is on true or false. So, for example, in my home, I have a switch called automatic lights. If I turn this off, all the automated lights stop. And that's nice because if you happen to be wanting to walk around at your house at night and not have the lights turn on, one switch turns it off. So I recommend doing things like this, setting in breakpoints to stop these automations. If you have a guest coming over, for example, and they will be freaked out because all your lights all of a sudden turn on when they go to the bathroom, this is a good idea to turn this on. Run all your automations through some sort of trigger. And I have my automations still split between Node-RED and the YAML or the built-in automations. I am migrating them back to the built-in automations because I like the way it reloads. And using Node-RED on mobile sucks. So um, anyway, so I would be using that. So in this case, I'll click over here. The automation blocker would be input boolean automatic lights, and we want it to be on. So if I had this turned off, then it would, yeah. So it's only going to run it if it's on, which is kind of confusing, but yeah. So you can set sun elevation check. So only do this if the sun is so many degrees above horizon. You can set, and then you can set different scenes. So the way it works is you can set either have it just turn lights on, or you can have it activate a specific scene at a specific time. So, for example, if you wanted to have lights come on full brightness in the middle of the day when you walk in, and then in the evening half brightness, and at night 1%, you can create a scene, and it's going to load those scenes in as you go. So, on this one, you kind of go down through each of these and set a scene, and then you can also have it do. Not only can you have it turn off the light, you can also have it go to a scene when there's no more motion. So this one's really super powerful, and it probably is more complex than most people need, but it does have a lot of great functions built into it that you don't have to code yourself. So this would be a good one to where no, we shouldn't see. This one it would be a little bit more difficult. You'd have to create a binary sensor, a virtual binary sensor, based on your ESP presence devices. So it'd be a little more complicated to do this. I probably would custom code my own automation if I was doing this for myself. So. And let me know if there's any questions here. I see we've kind of we're fluctuating between 4 and 2 people. So any questions for not even related to a video that I've necessarily done. If you have a home assistant, home automation, smart home question, tech question, feel free to ask. If not, you have to sit here and listen to me ramble the entire time. So. All right. Oh, another cool one is this turn off a fan based on humidity. So I have a exhaust fan in my bathroom, and it is triggered to turn on automatically if the humidity level gets above a certain point. So say I've got a Xiaomi Aquara humidity temperature sensor stuck on the door frame in my bathroom, and that you can basically watch when somebody takes a shower. It'll go up and down. Oops, that's bedroom. I really need to reorganize my dashboard. It's got a lot of stuff that I need to. So right here, you can see in the morning when somebody took a shower, my son just took a shower a little bit ago, and so it's really high. And throughout the day, you can see that goes up. So you can set a spike here if it goes above 50% for so many minutes, then run the fan so it'll help clear up the humidity, which is great if you are in the summertime where you don't want that humidity in your house. We also like to run it when the temperature differential between the I live on 2 levels, and oh yeah, good question, Aubrey. I'll get to that in 1 second. Yeah, my house for some reason is pretty new, but we have really bad insulation in the ceiling, so our upper floor in the summertime can get 6, 7 degrees hotter than the downstairs floor. So we run that exhaust fan. I don't think it makes much of a difference, but it's pretty low energy. So we run that exhaust fan sometimes when it's hotter, try to get some of that hot, humid air out of the top corner of the house. So Aubrey asks, what naming conventions do you use for your devices? Now, I usually name them based on the room. So are you asking about the entities, or are you asking about the names, or both? I guess. Yeah, I need to figure out how to disable slow mode. I didn't know why I turned that on because I don't think that's going to make anything easier. If you ask a question and then follow up with it, it's going to make you wait. So that's not. Um, so for my devices, um, I usually try to name it by the room it's in. I try to name it based on function. Names for both. Okay, yeah. So I get lazy sometimes, especially when I'm importing stuff. I use Zigbee to MQTT for my Zigbee bridges. So I have Zigbee and Z-Wave and Wi-Fi devices all throughout my house. So I have a little bit of everything. But I use oops, I hit that microphone. I use kind of the room it's in. So office lamp one, left lamp, right lamp. It's not great because especially if you're using something like the Google or the Alexa integration, it can get confusing. But also at the same time, I don't want everything to be a mouthful, right? Turn on living room left lamp, right? Turn on living room right lamp. So I use for the entity IDs, I typically try to give them a name that matches what they are. First floor entry sensor, front door sensor, front door lock, that sort of thing. So it would be sensor dot front underscore door underscore sensor, or binary underscore sensor. Blah, blah, blah. But so my Zigbee to MQTT, it used to be before they had the nice UI, which if you haven't seen, it's pretty cool. They've got a nice UI now in it. But before, it was all done through MQTT. So you couldn't easily rename your entities. So it would look like this. So it would be light dot 0x00178880. Completely worthless. So I would have to add it, and then I go into Home Assistant and I would change its friendly name. Well, then Home Assistant then allowed you to actually rename entity IDs, where it would actually rename them in the database. And I was just too lazy to go through and rename those. So you'll see, like for example, the motion sensor in this room, it's still named binary sensor 0x whatever. But now with this integration here, you can click on any of the Zigbee to MQTT devices, go down here to the bottom and click the rename. And then when you rename it, you can tag this update Home Assistant entity IDs, and it will rename those for you automatically with that standard nomenclature. So that's pretty nice. I do use quite a bit of the groups in Home Assistant because I think it's easier to name things by logical groups. So, for example, in my downstairs, I have I think 5 or 6 lamps in my first floor, and those are called decorative lights. And so those are the ones that are controlled by when the sun sets, they turn on, they ramp up, they're on for a while. They used to, when I hit pause on the TV, they would dim and all that good stuff. But that's just a collective cluster. So instead of saying, okay, assistant, turn on this lamp and turn on this lamp and turn on this lamp and turn on this lamp, I just say turn on decorative lights and they'll turn on. Or I say turn off second floor lights, first floor lights. And so you can take a group and create a group in Home Assistant, which is still only in YAML. You can't do it in the interface, but you can create a group or a scene, I guess you can do now, and then you can expose those to your assistant, whether Google or Alexa, and then use that in your Home Assistant app to say turn that on or off, whatever it is. The thing I'm really getting into now is naming my automations better. The nomenclature used for those is whatever triggers it, dash what it does. So, for example, you know, location dash something when it's location based, or motion dash. So when I look down through my automations, I can see, aha, that's the motion automation triggered in my office. There it is. Versus trying to think, oh well, today I called it, you know, office motion lights. This day I called it lights off, office motion, that sort of thing. So does that help you at all, or do you have any more specific questions on that one? Yeah, so this one's a hue bloom, just called Ryan Bloom. In our bedroom we have two lamps. It used to be one next to each of our beds. One's mine, one's my wife's. So we just called it Ryan lamp, Christy lamp, that sort of thing. So um, the okay. Hopefully that was helpful. Yeah, as you see by my dashboard here, I'll show you real quick. Let me just turn my face off here for a second so you can see. All right. It's kind of messy. I've been doing it for a while, but I have like security, phones, so from people's mobile phones, my appliances, which include my vacuum, systems, basement, first floor, second floor, outside, weather, cameras, computers, climate, power, which I'm in the process now of actually um, converting these over to the new energy dashboard, which actually my next two videos are going to be on energy dashboards. The first one is on a power meter. I've got a power meter that I actually installed today for that lets me see the whole house energy. I had one by the Energy Detective and it broke a while back, and I've just been too lazy to replace it. So I'm transitioning to that right now. People, which this is where I have like if you watch my video on APIs, I have my YouTube analytics in here, my stocks. Man, my Dogecoin's not doing great. And I've been playing with team status away as well. This is a cool one. If you haven't played with it already, there's a mail package tracking hacks add-on. Look at that out here. There's a mail package tracking add-on that uses an IMAP connection to your Gmail account, and then you basically have all of your emails go into specific folders, and it will scrape those emails and then display your your packages and tell you if you've got incoming packages for UPS, USPS, FedEx, things like that. There's my Amazon package I ordered this morning. That's probably not going to get here today. So, but this is a neat one. If you like knowing when your packages come in, where your packages, it'll also pull images off of their. If you have informed, whatever it's called from the U.S. Postal Service, will show you what's coming in your mailbox. This is another thing I'm playing with now. Using an app on my phone to pull data from my car and display it in Home Assistant using MQTT. It's a little buggy right now, but I'm working on that for a video as well. And then I've got my 3D printer. This is broken right now because my IP address changed. But as we can see, if we check that pumpkin's coming along pretty well now. So I think it's got about another hour and a half on there. It said it was supposed to take 3 hours, but I think it's going to take more like 4. So yeah, and that's a new addition, the 3D printer. So if you have questions on 3D printers, I've gotten really far into that in the last few weeks. I bought that thing like a week ago, and now I already have printed a bunch of stuff, and I feel much more in tune to 3D printers. So I will probably put a poll out tomorrow if you're be interested in seeing some 3D printing content. I'm not going to go crazy about it and turn it into a 3D printing channel, but it is pretty cool, and there is some neat stuff. I do have a video planned after this energy series to oh, thanks a lot, Al. Have a good night. I know it's kind of late. I'll probably ask and see if people wanted this to be at a different time, but this just worked out after work and after soccer practice, all that good stuff. But I have a video coming up when I'm setting up Octoprint, which is what I'm using over here to get all the cool analytics and stuff for my 3D printer and be able to access it and control it remotely and all that good stuff. So it's a pretty fun hobby to deal with. So if you're interested in that, let me know. I'll be happy to put some stuff up on the channel about that. Okay, so we talked about automations. Let me. Anybody have any other questions? I know there's about 3 of you on here right now. So if you have something, feel free to ask. Don't be shy. 4. Look at the 4. Feel free to ask any questions I said about any of this stuff. There are no dumb questions except for the ones you don't ask. So let me, I'll keep an eye on the chat. If anybody has a question, please ask. But I'm going to go into showing how to do that automation with, so the automation of being able to walk into a room, have the lights turn on, you're carrying your phone. So I guess the scenario would be you walk into a room that has a light sensor or has a motion sensor and some number of lights with your phone. So for example, I walk into the office, I want the lights to stay on as long as my phone's in the office. So how to do that? So let's look at how to do that real quick in Home Assistant. So, oops, I have to change to. I keep forgetting to use my my Stream Deck down here. That's what it's there for. Okay, so let's create a new automation. Call it Motion Office Lights. Is anybody else confused about the state versus the device function in Home Assistant? I'm just curious if anybody who's relatively new with Home Assistant, if you run into problems dealing with the difference between what is a state and what is a what's a state and what's a device. I know the device is a relatively new thing that they added into Home Assistant. So if you're confused about that, I think they're going the way of device being the default now, where you reference things based on the name of what the device is instead of the entity ID, since you can have multiple entity IDs for a single device. But it limits you on what you can do. It's not as powerful as going with a state. So I still like to use the states. So we'll use that motion detector we talked about before. When it goes to on, so I guess this would be motion office lights on. So this will be 2 separate automations, one to trigger the lights on and one to trigger the lights off. So in this case, we don't care about the phone, we only care about the motion sensor turning on. Aubrey, you haven't got that far with what? Oh, dealing with automations maybe? Yeah, a lot of people have asked, and I do have some plans to do some more basics video classes, talking about the difference between entities, friendly names, attributes. I mean, a lot of that stuff to me seems second nature because I've been doing this for 4 or 5 years now, but I totally get it. If you're a new person just jumping into Home Assistant, you're like, what the hell is an entity ID? What's a friendly name? Attributes? YAML? Jinja 2 scripting? What the hell? So a lot of that stuff is super powerful, and I do a lot of my automations with that, but I get it. It's complicated. So I have some more basics classes. One of them is on MQTT, what it is, the basics of that. And then entities versus, friendlies and devices and all that good stuff. So anyway, so we got the binary sensor turns on. So when that sensor turns on, if you want to set conditions, so if you want this to be during a particular time of the day, so let's just say we're going to do it based on time. So the fixed time, it will be valid anywhere between 8 a.m. and 5 p.m. So we only want this to be during business hours, Monday through Friday. So you're going into your office to turn on what the lights turn on. So in this case, we'll do office lamp. So the same devices we had before. So real quick, I'll show you. If you see here, right, this is a very simplistic. The devices I feel are more simplistic. Office lamp, turn on. Toggle, turn off, brightness, whatever. You don't have the capability of setting other more advanced topics versus if I'd go to service, call service light dot turn off or turn on. Now I can select multiple entities. I can do transition times. I can do a color. If it happens to be a light, they can change colors. You get a lot more options if you do the call service, but it's a little bit more complicated. So we're targeting those three lights we talked about before. We're going to set brightness. So if you aren't familiar with this in Home Assistant, you can either set brightness based on a brightness level or percentage. Brightness value is 0 to 255. Brightness level is 0 to 100. Hi, Richard. Welcome to the stream. So in this case, I want them to go to 100%. It's just really if you're trying to translate, the reason why you use the difference, if you're trying to match a different light, and maybe that light or that sensor is only in 0 to 255, or you want to match it up with RGB levels, that's why they have that two options. I typically use a percentage because it's just easier for me to remember, but I don't have to do math. So anyway, so there. Now we've got a motion automation, which will probably trigger while I'm sitting in here. Actually, I think all those lights are already on. Oh, another condition you can add to this too is the lights are off. So if we want to say state light dot, oh sorry, so yeah, light dot. I don't want to, so if I'm in the room and I've got one lamp on, I don't want all the lights to come on, because what if I'm in here and I turn some lights off? So in that case, you want to add the lights that you in the room to a condition to say if they're off. So I only want to turn the lights on if they're off. If I walk into the room and the lights are already on or one light's on, I don't want it to do anything. So you'd add you would add a condition here. Right. Duplicate. Okay. So now we have our on trigger. Pretty basic, pretty easy. Motion, lights turn on, but these lights are not going to stay on until I turn them off because there's no other function in there. So what we'll do now is create its brother. Okay, Richard. I'll look at that here in a second. I haven't heard about TinyCam changing the pricing structure. I've had TinyCam for 5-6 years. I bought it on the Amazon App Store back when the Amazon App Store launched. I think for like 10 cents or something. So I bought it really early on, and I've been using that license ever since. And I don't know, I'll have to look, but I know they have a cloud version. Sorry, I should ask that there. Yeah, let me. So Richard, I will answer your question here in a second. Let me finish with this automation, and then I'll go into that. I'll try to make this as fast as I can. Okay, so this is the counter to that one. Hi, James. That's a quick one. I haven't updated mine. I know there were some issues at 2021.9.0, but I haven't heard anything. I'll check the chatter and see if there's anything out there about that. But I haven't updated. Mine's still on .5, I think. So I will update my test environment here on the stream and see if that does anything. So ESP Presence. So for those who just joined, I'm just showing how to do an automation based on the ESP Presence project, where you walk into a room with a motion sensor, lights turn on, the lights stay on while you're in the room with your phone in hand. As soon as you leave the room, after a period of time, lights shut off. So the trigger for this one will be state sensor dot. Oops, sorry, not trigger ID. I haven't got used to those yet. I haven't started using those trigger IDs yet. So this is my ESP presence for my phone. So if it goes from office to anything. So once it leaves the office, and it leaves the office for 3 minutes, we'll say. Then, so if it goes from office to anything else, bedroom, kitchen, not home, then this will trigger. And then for conditions, we want there to be one check would be no motion detected. So we'll do our office motion. Get that out of the way. State. So office motion state is off. And we'll say lights on. But I'm not going to type all the lights out because I don't want to waste everybody's time for that one. But you'd want to put in all your lights, making sure you want the lights on. So you obviously don't want to turn off lights if there's no lights on. So office lamp. So if the office lamp is, we want it to be on. So if it's on, so just to review, if my phone goes from office to anything else, and there's no motion, and the lights are on, then we're going to turn the lights off. So in that case, turn off. And again, I'm only going to pick one because I don't want this to go on forever. Well, actually, I might as well do all of them because I'll probably wonder why my lamps are turning off on me. And you could also do an entire area too. That's the other cool thing. You could say, if you have all your lights in the office area, you could say, I'll turn off everything in the area. Light dot spare bedroom 2. All right. So there we go. Now we've got two automations. One turns light on when you walk in the room. One turns the light off if your phone's been out of the room for 3 minutes. So I will probably copy and paste these onto the blog post in case you want to see them for later. Hopefully that was helpful. If people who've been asking about those, I'm not sure if you're one of them, but all right. So let me get back to Richard's question on TinyCam. Let's check and see. I think they still just have the 2 tiers. What are you seeing, Richard, that maybe indicates that you've got different tiers? Because how it typically works is you just have Pro and Free, and Pro is what you need to have the web server. So if you want to update your question, Richard, I'll come back to that one. James, let me get my test environment updated, and we'll just see if we run into any problems. Oh, it's way behind. Are you updating from 9.6 or are you updating from a way earlier version? I don't see anybody really. There's not really any chatter in the forums about errors. James, what problems are you specifically having? Okay, so for the TinyCam, what are you running it on? Are you running on Android? Are you running it on Raspberry Pi? Be, I guess, the next question. And I will mention that there is a better way of doing, or there's a new way of doing Wise devices. Is my nightlight still on? There's a better way of doing the Wise devices now. I haven't dug into it all the way, but there's a Docker container, and now they've actually wrapped it into a I think it's a supervisor add-on. No, oh maybe they have. I can't remember where it is. They've wrapped the Docker container into an add-on, and that add-on does everything inside of the Docker container, so it doesn't have all the graphical UI problems of TinyCam. TinyCam works great if you have strong Wi-Fi and your device is running it is pretty strong. Okay, so Android, so you're running on like an Android phone or tablet. So then, and you have it set to use background mode. Background mode's turned on. It's set to there's a what's it called? There's a Watchdog you can turn on as well. Do you have that turned on to make sure that it doesn't turn off or doesn't? If it gets killed, it turns itself back on again. Let me see if I can find that. Oh, actually, it's right here. Switch over. Sorry, I keep changing. Yeah, so Watchdog mode is in the settings. Let's see what I've got. I didn't set up any screen capture for my phone, which I probably should in the future. But if you go through the settings, there's a Watchdog that if it gets killed, because if you're not familiar, so on Android, you have to, for something to run in the background, it has to show up in the notification shade. So when you pull down the different notifications, you ever notice a big long list of stuff down the bottom? Why it's in your notification? Because that's required for the OS to keep it alive, and so you know it's running. Now, if that gets killed or gets closed, then obviously the app will close in the background. If you turn the Watchdog on, that'll restart that automatically every time that gets kicked. So it's in the settings. Let me see if I can find it for you real fast. I still have TinyCam on here. Unfortunately, due to the global shortage of chips, I've had to recycle my TinyCam server into my Octoprint. So I only had 3 Raspberry Pis 4. I only had 3 Raspberry Pi 4s. One of them is my main home assistant. One of them is running the Office Pi, the one that's in this room, running Zigbee to MQTT in the closet back there. And the third one is that kind of floating one I use for testing. Well, I had to repurpose it to run the 3D printer. So that's running that right now. I can't open it right now. I uninstalled it, I guess. Let me just answer you on here. Watchdog for live view. Sorry, let me swap screens real quick. So settings Watchdog, I think is what it's under. That's where you can go to grab. It's got for live view and for I think the web server. Enable it for the web server so it keeps it running in the background even if it gets killed. Let's check on that update. Okay. So yeah, I just updated my test environment, which is running on a Proxmox virtual machine from, I think, version 7. 21.7 to the latest version of 2021.9.7, and it worked just fine. But I didn't have the supervisor updated, so I'm going to do that right now too. I guess the biggest thing would be to know, sorry. I guess the biggest thing, James, if you're on here still, would be to what specific issues are you having. Be aware that if you're updating in for a minor revision, usually you don't run into any breaking changes. Usually those are only introduced at major revisions. Oh, good, Richard. I'm glad you found it. But you, it's possible that there could be a bug introduced in one of those updates. So you might want to always check your logs. If Home Assistant crashes, if you have SSH or Samba set up, get in there and access your Home Assistant logs. I know they're daunting because there's a lot of them, but those are great to sift through to figure out exactly what's happening for your issue. So, but just dig through, look for that stuff, see what you can find. Feel free to use the forums too, and their Discord is great as well. There's a lot of helpful folks on the Home Assistant Discord who are really nice to newcomers, especially if you never got on the Discord before. So that's an option as well. All right. Any other questions from anybody? Again, I want to make sure the floor is open. If anybody who's watching the stream has questions for anything. So the update on the supervisor didn't work on my test instance. So we'll see what's going on with that. Maybe that's part of the problem that James is seeing is the supervisor. So as you know, you have both the core operating system that runs everything, that you used to call supervisor, now it calls operating system. That updates at a different revision than Home Assistant, the actual app, does. So sometimes those can get out of whack, or I haven't heard of any, like, you can only go so many versions up before it doesn't let you update Home Assistant anymore. I'll have to look into that, but I'm not sure where that goes. Now, if you watched my video 2 weeks ago, I used Portainer, which is what you can use to kind of control the Home Assistant Docker instance. Now, one cool thing that if you don't know about this on Portainer is you can actually connect to other Docker containers. So if you have a server in your house or somebody else that's running Docker, so for example, again, the Raspberry Pi in that closet is running a few different Docker containers. One of them is the beta version of that Wise integration. And then I also have my gas meter sensor on there as well. Those run separately, and they integrate via MQTT. I can control the Docker instance on that from my Portainer at Home Assistant. So that's great because if one of those Dockers crashes, I just have to open up my Home Assistant, go into Portainer, and then restart the Docker stack. So that's an option. If you happen to be a person that has, I have 4 Docker servers in my house running various things, and if you happen to have multiples of those, then that's helpful to be able to connect to those remotely. So let me see, was another topic that people had questions on. Let's look at the Wise bridge. This is the one that I haven't really had a chance to look at very much, but we'll kind of talk through that real fast. So this is the new Wise Docker bridge that I mentioned before, sort of the spiritual replacement for the TinyCam. So literally the day I uploaded that TinyCam video, Somebody posted this in the Home Assistant Reddit, I think it was, that they've got this new, basically a bridge that bridges between the Wise API and the cameras, and it does a lot of really cool stuff. Like, it will sometimes be able to kick the cameras into local only, meaning that instead of like the tiny cam right now, you connect to the cloud. The cloud then pulls down and it puts a stream in the app. So if you've got Home Assistant running and you want to have your cameras in Home Assistant, you have to take TinyCam, go to the Cloud API, pull down a stream that's coming off your camera, Cloud, TinyCam, Home Assistant. It's really inefficient, slow, and it's not good for your connection. It's not great for Wise either. So this developer claims that their bridge will kick the cameras into local mode, which I don't know how that works. This is even on version 3 cameras. It doesn't support the outdoor cameras yet, or at least a couple weeks ago when I looked at it. But it allows you to go in and get local RTSP streams off of a version 3 camera, which is pretty cool. So it's something to look into. You can run it as a separate Docker container if you want. I have mine running on Home Assistant. This one, again, I haven't dug into it too much because it seemed to cause problems with my cameras. But I think I have a pretty weak Wi-Fi here, so that could be part of the issues too. And if you're a fan of Wise, they just announced the new version 2 pan camera. So this is the upgrade to their version 1 pan camera, which I only have one of these, and it only really makes sense if you have one camera for a whole area and you need to pan around. The version 3, I think, has a wide enough lens that it can almost see an entire room by itself. But if you wanted to be able to, look around a corner or whatever happens to be, they had the pan, which was based on the same as the version 2. This has the sensor set from the version 3, which if you watch my review, the sensor is amazing. It can see forever in the dark. It uses that, and it has a couple other enhancements as well. So this just came out, I think, yesterday, and Wise is sending me one of these, so you'll hopefully see a review on it here in a couple of weeks. Once I get through this Energy series. So I have a couple of hardware reviews coming up. Some stuff that's been sent to me and some stuff that I purchased on my own. So that's coming up as well. All right. So we've been going for about an hour and a half now. So I'll probably hang out for another 10 minutes if you guys have any questions. Like I said, I'll be happy to stay until 10 a.m. my time, or 10 p.m. Not 10 a.m. My time if you have any other questions. Or if you're just listening to me to go to sleep, that's fine as well. But like I said, if you have questions on any videos, any Home Assistant topic, home automation, electronics manufacturing, IT, whatever, just feel free to ask them in the comments. If not, I'm going to watch let's see how much time we've got left on the print job here. That's still saying hours. Oh, good night, Richard. Thanks for stopping by. So I do plan on doing these probably monthly, about this time of every month, if that works out. So we'll have another month to plan if you have questions to come and ask them. I think about calling it Home Automation Help Desk. So anyway. Let's see what Octoprint says. How much time's left? It still says 1.5 hours. Yeah, I don't think it's that long. Because it's only printing the main part now. That's going to be super cool when it's done. So this is kind of neat here. I'll show you what this project looks like. So it's a little Minecraft jack-o'-lantern keychain, light up keychain thing. You can actually put in just a simple CR, like CR2 2032 or what have you. Let's see if he's got a picture of it. Yeah, so a battery and a simple LED, and then it will look like this when you turn it on. So I thought it'd be kind of cool to get my kid for his backpack. We're gonna print a larger one. They have these larger jack-o'-lanterns for the front. I want to print a big one, but I like I only have about 200 square millimeters of build space on this plate. So, and I don't want to take. I would hate to do a 30-hour print and have it fail somewhere in the middle of that. So, I did invest in an auto bed leveler for my 3D printer, which a lot of people say you don't need for this size of 3D printer, but I like it, especially as a newbie. It makes it really easy. You don't have to worry about anything else. So. So let's see here. Let's see what the energy meter. So this new energy meter kind of has a neat little feature, the one that I'm using. It allows you to actually break down by different circuits in your house. So that's why you see I've got one called cooktop microwave that allows me to pull information. I can see there's no way that the cooktop microwave is using 1.2 kilowatt hours. I guess that's probably in a day. Oh, that's the total collective over a day. So yeah, I'm working on trying to get my gas meter in here as well. It's probably good. That's kind of a for whoever's left on here, the last person left on here. I'm working on. I've got a. Oh wow, that's updating now. Sweet. I'm able to actually read my gas meter and my water meter both now using a SDR or software defined radio. So that will be a video in 2 weeks. How to do that if you're interested in pulling that into Home Assistant. Now there is a bug in Home Assistant, even though they introduced in 2011.9 to be able to bring gas meters in. They also introduced a bug that doesn't let you actually add one that has cubic feet as the unit of measure. It even if you do the math and convert it to cubic meters, it still doesn't work. So there's a lot of chatter in the forums about it not working. Maybe a fix will come in the version 10, so the version coming in October. So, yeah, hopefully that'll come soon. But this was actually kind of cool. The guy, the water department was in my neighborhood this week. I noticed that he had messed with my water meter. I think he had changed out the receiver or updated it, and now it's actually sending out updates more than once a month, which is pretty cool. So I'm kind of seeing what's going from there. And the reason why you're not seeing much for the gas is because it's only came back online a couple hours ago after I repowered on my house. So Sorry, I'm checking something real quick on my phone. Wow. All right. Well, I think I'm going to wrap up the stream for the day. Again, thanks for everyone who joined throughout the night. If you have additional questions, you can hit me up on any of the socials down below. Come join our Discord server. I've got people coming in and asking questions. I didn't even see if anybody asked any questions in the Discord while I was on here. Nope. You and Reds. There's me. Oh, just people joining. Okay. So feel free to jump into the Discord. I've been helping a couple people out through various projects. So if you have a question about a project that you're interested in doing, you get stuck on something, get stuck on a video, just jump into the Discord. That's probably the best place. Make sure you message me so that way it notifies my phone. Because if not, I've noticed people have asked me questions and it's been a day or two and I haven't responded to them. So, or feel free to ask a question on this, a comment on this video if you have other further questions. Thank you again for joining us, and I really appreciate. I thought nobody would show up, so I'm so happy we had, 6, 7 people coming on the stream today. So that was really nice. I appreciate whoever is still sticking around. That's awesome. Thanks for stopping by, and hope you guys have a great rest of your week. Hopefully I'll get the next video out on Monday. I'm struggling to get things done in a fast and efficient manner, so but I'll try to get that video out on Monday, and I'll see you all then. Have a great weekend.